item 6, which is a planning application, and I'll turn to Victoria to introduce this item, please. Yes, of course. There are requests to speak, both from applicant and several objectors. Kitty, are you content to hear from the parties?
Content.
Claire, can you confirm that all parties are present?
Thank you, Chair. We have got Mr. Westhill with us here in person. We have Miss Pitty on the telephone. I'll just check. Can you hear us, Miss Pitty?
I can, thank you.
And I understand Miss Parker may join Miss Pitty on the same line. And we have Miss Dawson with us today via Teams. Can I just check if Miss Dawson can hear us and if you're here?
Yes, I can.
Perfect, thank you. I'll pass back to Chair.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to welcome you to this particular item. Please do not speak unless I invite you to do so, and please do not interrupt the other speakers. If you do, you may be removed from the meeting. You will have 5 minutes to speak. Members may then ask questions. You will then be entitled to remain in the meeting, but you're not entitled to speak again. But we'll hear from the planning officer first. Ms. Moore, can you introduce the item, please?
Good Chair. Good morning, councillors. The application up before us is full planning permission for formation of a quarry for extraction of sand and gravel at Middleton Farm in Formartine. Prior to the report, there's a couple of clarifications I'd like to just highlight that confirm that this has gone through monitoring process, and paragraph 1.2 should read that no additional comments were made. And also condition 1 on the report should refer to condition 12, which is restoration condition, and not 13. So just right, this is an application for sand and gravel quarry located approximately 255 metres west of Potterton, which is just here on agricultural land, part of Middleton Farm, and the site is within the Aberdeen Green Belt. The HGV traffic from here will go along an unclassified route here down the B977 to Loch Hills Quarry, which is just here. We'll discuss that a bit later on. The proposed site area is around 11.14 hectares in size, and an average of 70,000 tonnes of sand and gravel will be extracted a year, with a total of 400,000 tonnes extracted in total. There will be no processing on the site at all, and the soils will be scraped back, used to form the bunds while the quarry face is excavated, and then it will be progressively reinstated. All the material will be loaded onto an HGV and transported for processing at Loch Hills Quarry. We've received a total of 77 valid representations objecting to the proposed development, and all the material planning considerations have been summarised within section 3 of the report and addressed within the discussion at section 6. A number of internal consultations been carried out, which are detailed within section 4 of the report, and externally, Belhelvie Community Council have objected to the proposal, raising concerns regarding suitability of the road, infrastructure for HGVs, dust and air quality. All the technical aspects have been assessed, and with mitigation measures considered satisfactory subject to conditions. I've got a few slides here showing the different phases of the development, but it will be operational for a lifespan of 5 years and 9 months and fully reinstated thereafter and returned to operational agricultural use. The site will be developed over 3 phases, as detailed in section 2. The planning service has recommended hours of operation be conditioned to 8 till 7 Monday to Friday, 8 till 12 Saturday, which is in line with Scottish Government planning guidance on this type of development. The applicant's proposed working hours are 8 till 5 Monday to Friday with no weekend working. However, the proposed condition will allow some flexibility while protecting the amenity of neighbouring properties. Environmental Health have confirmed they are satisfied with the proposed conditions relating to the hours of operation, noise and air quality. So, but the same key applies for all the phases. We've got the yellow will be the quarry face along here. The light green is the area that's already been reinstated, and there's a medium green here, which is bunds around here, and also some planting in front of the properties here. The average depth, the nearest property here is Newton Grange and here's Newton Hill. So they'll be referred to a number of times in the report. The average depth of excavations between 2 and 4 metres with a maximum depth of 6 metres. The excavation will reduce the height of the field. However, the hydrology report confirms the water table will not be reached, and this is 8 metres below the maximum excavation depth. Surface water drainage on the site will be contained within the boundary, and a settlement pond will be created in the low-lying southeast corner of the site. No impermeable surfaces will be created, and the water will infiltrate across the site, and this is discussed further within hydrology section report at paragraph 6.24. As the phases are developed, the land will be progressively reinstated, with the soil bunds being reused and the new bunds formed with scraped soil from the next phase. And this will help mitigate against noise and visual impact of the excavations. So we've got a section about showing on BB, which is across this section, and that indicates the overall depth of the site. So this is the section across it, showing that the bottom green line is the final restored site. So you're not left with a deep hole that can free profiling across it, say average 2 to 4 metres across it. The third phase of the development is within the northern part of the site. And we've got 2 sections across this. So we've got A to A, east-west, and C to C, which is north-south. And these are shown on your site plan here, with again the green at the bottom being the final. So there's quite a lot of undulating. This section here on the south is the higher section of the 6 metres, so smoothed out across it. Now I've got a couple of short videos to show you around the site. So this one's taken from the B999 just to the south of Formartine. The unclassified road from which the access is taken runs to the south of Gertie Park. So this is the unclassified road here. And at the back of the site here is where our development site is, but there'll be no traffic going along this the B999 towards the site. This video is taken from Newton Grange, which is one of the closest properties, looking across the site, and Formartine is in the distance beyond that field across, and at the top here, sorry, moving across here, that's the road at the cross, the unclassified road, and you've got this dike across that will be removed and later reinstated. There'll be an 11-metre section of planting along the private road here in front of this property and in front of Newton Hill. And the distance to the nearest part of the quarry is about 140 metres east of this property. And this video is taken beside Newton Hill, which is down the southwestern corner of the site. And it's about 115 metres, the nearest point of excavation. So again, the road, unclassified road, is at the top of the screen there, and Formartine is just beyond that, over on the right-hand side. And the boundary of the site is these trees to the side, and there's a track that goes along there. I've then got some photographs of the site access as you're approaching. So this one is taken as you're driving along the unclassified road, and then the house at Gertie Park are on the right-hand side, and Formartine's just kind of behind you. And the site's up the top of the hill on the left-hand side. This photo is from the northeastern corner of the site, immediately adjacent to the new access point. So the new access point will be just alongside here. And this will be designed so that all HGV vehicles will turn left out the site towards the B977 away from Formartine. Oops, sorry. And the site extends, taken from the same point, the site extends down to the tree line in at the rear of the photo at the south, where the excavation is starting in the bottom southeastern corner, moving north and west. And this is another view over the majority of the site, with the nearest properties of Newton Grange and Newton Hill in the far side over there. Again, the tree belt is the boundary of application site. So the access, we've then taken, this photo is taken from the proposed access on the left-hand side, just looking along the road. There's 2 passing places proposed. One's new, an existing one will be along this section, and HGV traffic will be travelling along this towards the B977. You've got an existing field entrance along, which is where our existing passing place is, and there's another passing place proposed approximately halfway between this and the access road to Newton Grange. And here you can see that's the access point to Middleton Farm, you probably may well be aware of at the moment. So you can see from this photo, it's a very undulating field at the moment, and down to the trees at the bottom. And you can see the dike in the middle that will be removed, stone set aside, and then reinstated later on. And you've got the new passing place. This one's passing place I is located approximately at the brow of the hill in the middle of this picture, so about there. I've got a map coming up of just what the passing place is. This is the private, not private, it's an unclassified road down, private track that takes you down to Newton Grange and Newton Hill. Newton Grange is just beyond that telegraph pole, just about there, and Newton Hill is down the bottom here, with the application site on the left-hand side. And along this track, there'll be planting about 11 metres wide. And some of the thicker, taller 2.75 metre trees will be right in front of the 2 properties. This is just showing you along the east, looking eastwards along the southern boundary with the trees that are already there on the southern side of it, taken from approximately Newton Hill. So as part of the requirements, roads requirements, is the additional passing spaces will be required on the unclassified road. It's a distance just over half a mile. And the development will generate a maximum of 14 return trips between the site and Lochhill's Quarry, which is 2.7 miles southwest of the site. The applicants are proposing to use a single vehicle for these trips, and we need a number of additional parking places. So this document here shows that the existing passing places are the blue dots that are there at the moment. The orange ones are the proposed passing places. And there's one informal passing place, which is shown by the pink dot in the middle. And the access to the site is shown just here. This bit here is the access to Middleton Farm, and this access here is the one that takes you down to Newton Grange. So the development starts here, everybody's turning left out the development. So from this is the track that goes down to Newton Grange behind me. And turning left, and on the corner here, you can see there's an existing passing place, which is passing place H on the corner. Following along that road, it's taken approximately lay-by G with existing lay-by D at the top of the photo. And there's an informal passing place and a new passing place will also be between them. The maximum distance between the passing places is 199 metres. And here is that this is a junction at the top with the B977. Passing place A is in the distance of the photo. B is here, and there's new passing places between the majority of the existing ones that are there at the moment. And Road Service have confirmed that these measures will satisfy the requirements for improvements on the unclassified road. The tree belt is approximately 11 metres wide along this western boundary. That is going to be a permanent feature. This is the final restoration of the site, and that will provide screening and visual protection to Newton Grange and Newton Hill during the development, as well as the view from the west. This will include 2,650 trees of a mix of species, with a taller one planted in front of the 2 dwellings to create more effective early landscaping. The revised restoration proposal will provide a biodiversity net gain with the creation of the tree belt, and the ground will be put back to full agricultural use. And the existing soils will be reused in reinstatement of the site. The final reinstatement is likely to take a further 12 months following completion of the development. and a condition restricting the permission for a total of 7 years is proposed to allow for the excavation and the reinstatement. So the date within condition 1 would get updated depending when the section 75 is signed, which will be required for a road levy. One other slide here is the Community Council, within their objection, are referring to a recently approved BESS site. So I just wanted to show that on the plan here, that it's adjacent to the site, but the access to it is completely separate from this site. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victoria. Do members have any questions? Councillor McAllister. Louise, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the report. Forgive my ignorance, but just to make sure that I've got it right in my head, when you talk about 11-metre wide planting, that's going to run effectively alongside the road, the length of the road between the two sort of concerned houses. So from where your cursor is there, what form is that going to take? It's not 11 metres deep, it's 11 metres wide, so running along the side of the road effectively. Is that right, please?
Yes, that's right. So it's not a bund there. There's bunding beside the actual quarry face, which will change as they're developing the quarry. But this will be a planted area of 11 metres wide along that western boundary. It's out with the site boundary, but it's within the control of the applicant.
Yep.
Thank you. And in terms of the planting, these taller trees to be planted immediately in front of the houses, so they are going in as these fully matured 2.75 trees, that they will actually be planted in that state. So from the get-go, they'll be done. And then in terms of the other planting, is that hedgerows, or what form does that take?
This will be 2,650 trees overall within this. So it's a tree belt that's being proposed. Most of them will be smaller to start with, but you can see that area here that's highlighted, and also down the bottom area there between front of the existing houses, that will be planted. And this planting will be right at the start of the development. So the planting will be created first before they start quarrying, and it will be retained thereafter. So it's trees rather than hedges.
Yeah, thank you. It was just to sort of clarify. I know there's some details in the papers, but just to raise that. Thank you.
Okay, I have a number of hands now. Councillor Colley, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Nicholl. John, please.
Going back to these trees, can we just, how many big trees are there? Because over the 5-year period, if they're only small trees, they're not going to be grown at all in that period of time. So how many of the bigger trees will they be putting in?
Actually, I think it was 60 to start with, but I will double check that in 2 seconds. Just give me a second. It's 60 to start. So the light standard trees, we've got a mix of oak, Scots pine and aspen, and it's 20 of each of those trees, split between the two areas.
Okay, and a couple of other quick questions. We're saying they'll be turning right. Street, or is it their choice that they can do that?
We can't be compulsory that it has to turn left, but the road access will be designed to that, and the quarry that they're going to is in that direction. So that's the most likely direction that they would be taken, and it's designed to go in that direction.
Okay, and the last one was the new passing places they're putting in. Do they control that land already? Is that all theirs?
That's within the road verge, so it's in the control of the council.
Okay, Councillor Davidson, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. So there's a couple of questions, but one extraction depth, but I can ask the applicant if that suits better.
So the extraction depth, it's an average of between 2 and 4 meters, but a maximum of 6 meters. So there's a couple of bits that's kind of raised up that they'll be down by 6 meters, but the average cross will be between 2 and 4.
Once the topsoil's stripped off.
From what it is at the moment. So from what it is at the moment, and then down to a maximum depth of 6 meters.
And I think you said that there would be a single vehicle doing the run all day.
That's what they're proposing, that it's going to be 14 return trips. So by having one vehicle, then it's hopefully avoiding, you know, having another one meeting the other one along that track. That's what this proposal is.
I understood that. Yes, I figured that out. But we can't condition that it would be one vehicle. No, so it could change, is really what I'm saying.
It could change. We can't condition that. We can condition that the passing places are put in. That would be before any excavation starts. But we can't condition that maybe on whatever day that there's 2 being used. That's not a condition we'd be able to use.
Has there been any discussion with the people that are intending putting in the best plant about any impact on it?
I'm not aware if there's discussion between them on that, but the access for the 2 on here, the access for the best is on the B999, that's the bottom. So that's going to be B999, whereas the access for this one is from the B977 on the other side. So the 2, any HGV are setting up for the development of the best will be accessed from a different point to this point. To this application site.
I think there were concerns about the operation of it rather than the access to it. So, but there is unlikely to be. Do we know that there's unlikely to be any impact on the operation of the best plant?
There's unlikely to be any impact on the operation of that from developing this site, and the time frame for the 2 of them working. This would likely be taking, let's say, 5 years, 9 months of developing it forward. But they're starting. The proposal is due to start in that bottom corner there, which is beside the best, and then move away from it. So any impact in the operation of the best would be minimal by the way that they're proposing to develop the site through the phasing.
And the other thing, and I know you're going to say you don't have it, but I would really have liked to drive along the road as a video, just so we can see.
My dash camera refreshes every 30 seconds.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's quite hard to visualise. It's not because they're quite narrow roads that we don't necessarily use very often. It's quite hard to, just properly assess the impact.
3 photos were taken kind of in succession of these 3 here, so that
it only goes to the junction of past Hillhead. It doesn't take you onto that other minor road that goes past Red Moss, does it?
I haven't taken photos going down the B977, no, towards the quarry, no.
Okay. All right. Oh yes, that is the B977.
So the B977 is at the top there.
So it is.
So this site is at the turn off to, so the previous slides, sorry, just 2 seconds. This slide here is from just past the access a wee bit behind me, but just past along the straight of that. And then you've got from this one here, that's where the turn off to Newton Grange and Newton Hill. So this is on the western boundary of the site, about the western corner. And they would carry on over the brow of the hill round the corner. And then it kind of straightens up for a bit, goes round another wee bend over to the left.
So and then does it go over or under the bypass?
It doesn't go. Oh, which way is the road? Because I drove it the other day.
I can ask the applicant.
It doesn't go onto the bypass.
It goes over the bypass.
It goes. Yeah, the road goes over the bypass there. Yeah, we don't. The traffic from here will not go onto the bypass.
No, well, yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, it goes 100 round there, I think.
Either goes over or under it. There's
Yeah.
both in here.
I can't think on the top of my head.
Okay,
We'll come back to that.
that's all, isn't it?
Oh. Okay, Councillor Nicholl, Jenny, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it goes over and then left at Park Hill,
Yes.
past the Park Hill nursery. So, I've got 3 wee questions. So, page 30, there's a land transfer agreement mentioned. I just wonder who's that agreement between? My second question is, the land is allocated as Aberdeen Green Belt. So can I ask why it's been deemed justifiable for mineral extraction if it's Green Belt land? And I'm not sure if the third one is for planning or roads, but I wondered, what is the current signage related to HGVs on the U17C at the moment? I'm aware there is signage both in locations on it, but I haven't seen it in the pictures, the presentation today. Thank you.
You said the
At page 30, there's a mention of a land transfer agreement.
On the last line of the second paragraph, sorry, pardon me, the last line of the second paragraph on page 30.
It's just a wee, oh, sorry, no, it was just a wee clarification.
In terms of the HGV signs, I would refer to my rogues colleagues to answer that one. If you don't mind.
Okay, can I turn to Ken to answer that particular query about HGV signs?
Thank you, Chair. So there are several signs which say unsuitable for HGV. Unsuitable means that HGVs are not recommended, but they're not prohibited. Not sure if that
Okay,
helps.
thank you. Are you in a position to comment about the land transfer agreement? I mean, the sentence reads, these modifications to the adopted road will require a Section 56 application and a land transfer agreement.
That will be to Aberdeenshire Council in some bits of it.
Yeah, sorry, it's the Section 56 is where land is required out with the road boundary, then the landowner would transfer the land to Aberdeenshire Council. It's a standard procedure, but it's something that needs to be adhered to.
And I'm presuming that would be to allow the formation of the passing places. Yeah.
Exactly, Chair, thanks.
Okay.
Just the question on Green Belt.
Yeah. So in relation to the green belt, that mineral applications are acceptable within the green belt. The overall, you've got arable land at the moment, and it will be reinstated to agricultural land after the development, and with the with the tree belt as well, there'll be a biodiversity net gain overall on the site, so it's not considered to be detrimental to the characteristics of the green belt.
Okay. Can I turn to Councillor Hassan? Andrew, please.
Yeah, it was just to come in on the signage about unsuitable for the HGVs. I'm looking at it on the screen now is in Google Maps. The sign unsuitable for the HGVs has been in situ since 2010. But I guess in planning terms, we can't, this is really a question for the legal advisor, we can't condition anything around that signage because presumably from what we've just heard from Ken, it's advisory. So we can't, am I right in saying that if it comes to, you know, when we come to conclude this, we couldn't make a condition or form a condition around the fact that that road is currently signed unsuitable for HGVs?
Correct, that wouldn't be a competent condition to put on.
I appreciate you have your hand up, Louise, but I'm going to turn to Councillor Johnson, partly because you've asked already. Paul, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wondered, in terms of the presentation that's in front of us, I didn't see anything which actually gave us any detail on the engineering work which permits only the well, encourages, whatever you like to call it, the turn, the left turn required in order to satisfy the concerns on the road exiting onto the B999. Have you got anything, and can you put that up on the thing? And then I'd like to ask a question.
Just get the site plan for that, just a second.
I'm afraid you'll need to just bear with us a wee bit with a little bit of technical difficulty in retrieving the particular plan.
That's okay.
On the bottom of the access on that plan, I've got the existing, sorry, the proposed access down in the bottom corner.
Yeah. Doesn't really show. Unfortunately, I can't see, even on my own screen at home here, sufficient detail on it. With roads being in the place, could an explanation be given as to how this is going to operate? This committee has had experience in the past of conditions to form the entrance and exit to sensitive sites in this manner that haven't been successful, and has caused quite a bit of debate recently over traffic management around the Botterton area. If that's the case, could I get any further thing from Ken? Could you enlighten us on how this is going to be formed?
So can we jump in, Chair?
Yes, please, Ken.
So the access plan will have identified the route for the vehicles, and that document will be within the planning submission. So it will be managed by the operator, and we would be able to, if they're causing issues by not adhering to their operational plan, then we'd be able to go in and ask them to either update their plan to reflect what they're actually doing, or to adhere to the plan that was agreed.
But we've heard that this has no legal basis. It's nothing that can be enforced. We've already heard that. So what is this mechanism then of a plan? Does that enforce it, or is there something engineering in this that which would actually ensure that this will happen? That the route, the agreed route, would be adhered to?
There's nothing that we can use to enforce it. However, the information that's been provided and the agreement that will be reached if this is approved today would be linked to the transportation document that they provided. That's the that's the junction there. So you can see the junction, because it's HGV. You can see the junction to the radius to the left has been been created as a compound curve, which will allow HGVs to join the road without having to use up all of the road that they're driving onto. So, and the one to the left is much tighter and would be much more difficult to negotiate. So it will be easier for them to turn left out of that junction. I mean, they could turn right, but it's obviously designed to encourage drivers to turn left, and the driver will have been advised by the operator that that's the route he's to take.
And turning into the site?
It's the same way. They're coming in, turning right into the site, left out.
Okay.
So
and there are no difficulties turning left into the site coming up from Potterton.
Again, the radius is such that the swept path of the vehicle will require the vehicle to use all of the road to turn left into the site that way. The junction is not designed to take HGV. It's not intended to take HGV movements. It's not saying that it can't, but it's not intended to do that.
Okay. Finally, could I just then quiz you, Ken, regarding the one which we had was at a landfill site on the eastern side of Potterton, from Mill of Potterton going towards what is now the AWPR junction, and at that location there was a build out agreed, which actually forced a concrete build out, which was most notable and which forced the vehicles to do it. It didn't, that particular entrance and exit to the site was not done for very long, but your service recommended not putting those in when we're dealing with the traffic management in the area at that time. What has changed with this one? Is it because it's not as severe?
Sorry, I'm not aware of that junction, so I can't really comment on that.
Okay. This was one into this. The local members will know it's the access into the former landfill site on the between Potterton and Black Dog.
Can I comment though that we're dealing with this particular application?
Yes, my question is about the design of the entrance area and whether it works or not. And
okay, I think Ken has responded and Victoria has responded as much as they can.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Sterling and then Councillor McAllister.
Thanks very much, Chair. The issue of restoration of the road, should there be any damage, has been addressed, I think, through a Section 75 levy requirement. So, but my question really is, has it been considered about conditioning a traffic management plan?
That is a condition that could be attached to it. It hasn't been part of the recommendation on the road service, but it is a condition that could be incorporated in.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor McAllister, please.
Thanks, Chair. I appreciate you bringing me back. And it was just a further point of clarification around the transfer of land to create these passing places from whom to whom is, and has that already been agreed? So who would be purchasing the land? Who will then take on ownership of that? Will it form part of the road network? Just a bit of clarification around that, please.
But it will form part of the road network. The passing places, majority of it is within the road verge. And if there's slight areas out with those, they would become within, so it would be to Aberdeenshire Council. Those haven't been agreed, I don't think, at this second until once it's proved or otherwise. But that requirement to install these as part of that plan is a condition that's prior to any other development. So it would have to be, they would have to be put in place before any excavation started.
Okay, can Ken add anything further?
No, I think that's been covered quite well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I've a question in relation just to, you had a map of the various passing places. Could we go back to that one? And my question is just how many were there and the size is the length. And of the existing ones, are they going to be taken up to the size of the new passing places?
So do you want me to take that one, Chair?
Yes, if you can.
So the new passing places will be designed to our normal standards, which be 10 metres long with flares in each end. The existing passing places, they would be sufficient to take for an Arctic to pull in. The existing passing places are suitable that an Arctic and a standard car can pass, and it would be that the standard car may well go into the space rather than the Arctic because they're not actually big enough, long enough to take an, sorry, not an Arctic, an HGV. And the purple dot there is what we class as a passing opportunity. It's quite an informal passing place, but it could be used if necessary, but it's quite close to the proposed orange dot as well. So the maximum distance I think is something like 190 meters, which is sufficient for that class of road.
Yep, thank you very much. I see no further hands at this stage, so I'm going now to turn to Mr. Westall. You may address the committee. You'll have 5 minutes in total.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors, ladies and gents. My name is Rob Westall and I'm Planning and Development Manager for Leith Scotland Limited, the applicants for this planning application. The application before you today was submitted almost a year ago and has been the subject of careful consideration by our officers, the full range of statutory consultees and by members of the public. There are no unresolved technical objections and officers have recommended that planning permission should be granted, subject to conditions and a legal agreement covering payment of a roads levy. National and local policy requires local authorities to ensure there's a minimum 10-year land bank of sand and gravel. There's consensus that current reserves in Aberdeenshire fall below that minimum threshold. There is therefore a clear need for additional sand and gravel reserves, as is confirmed in the officer's report. Leith is an Aberdeen-based company employing 244 people across Aberdeenshire and Aberdeen City, supplying essential minerals to the construction industry. We undoubtedly make an important contribution to the city and shire's local economy, supporting local jobs and contributing towards economic development. Sands and gravels are, of course, the major constituent in concrete, and we supply concrete from 2 strategically located sites, Lock Hills Quarry at Park Hill to the north and Black Hills Quarry Cove to the south of Aberdeen. Our remaining sand and gravel supplies in the Aberdeen area were exhausted in 2024, and there's an urgent need to source further reserves. The minerals at Middleton Farm will not be processed at Middleton Farm. Instead, they'll be transported to Lock Hills Quarry, which has the existing infrastructure to receive, process and utilise the sand and gravel. Lock Hills Quarry is under 3 miles, 2.7 miles to be exact, away from the proposed site by road. Minerals can only be worked where they naturally occur. We're fortunate to have found a deposit which is in close proximity to the market where it's needed and to our existing site where the minerals can be processed using existing plant and machinery. As your officer has confirmed in the comprehensive report before you, there are no material considerations that will prevent the approval of permission. The proposal is in accordance with the development plan, local development plan, and planning permission should be granted accordingly. Councillors, this is an important mineral reserve, not just for Leith, but also for Aberdeenshire and Aberdeen City's economy. We respectfully request that planning permission be approved today. I'm happy to take questions, but if I could just pick up on the routing point that was made.
Please do.
Thank you, Chair. Condition 5, recommended condition 5, proposes that we submit details of that junction onto the U17C before we commence any operations. And it sets out the radii of the various curb lines that we proposed in the drawing that was put up on the big screen just now. So we have to submit details of that junction design before we can do anything, and those details have to be approved by the council. I'd just like to also point out we will just be using 1 lorry on a return trip to and from Lock Hills Quarry, Middleton Farm. That lorry will have Leith's branding written all over it. It'll be driven by a Leith employee. There's no question that vehicles would need to turn right out of sight towards the village. They will all be turning left towards Lock Hills. No other reason in the world to go on any other route. I hope that puts members' minds at rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Turn to members or questions to Mr. Westhill. Councillor Forsyth, please, Alistair.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have some experience of land reinstatement. Can you indicate if the class of the existing land will be restored or improved when you reinstate it? I have, in some experience, found that some of the land reinstatements, for example, over open cast mining, from agricultural land to open cast mining and Vicky Verky back to agricultural land, has actually ended up being an improvement, A, because of drainage and B, because of levels. I wonder if you can illustrate some indication of where you're going with that. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as you're aware, the aim is to, or the intention is to restore the land back to agricultural use, which is written into our option agreement with the landowner. The landowner is farming as his business, and he wants the land back in no worse condition, certainly, than it currently is. Just by way of sort of track record, I don't know whether members are familiar with Nether Park Quarry over near Drumoak. It's a site that Leiths have been working now for over 10 years, sand and gravel site, with exactly the same restoration methodology, i.e. lower level restoration back to agricultural use that we're proposing with Middleton Farm. Nether Park is now, the final phase of it was actually seeded last week and is back in arable production. There are crops of spring barley in there, growing away very happily. Landowner is extremely pleased with the standard of restoration that we've done, and I don't see why Middleton Farm couldn't be any different. Thank you.
So the basis of the question was that the class of the land is either status quo in its restoration or improved.
As good or better. Better is what we're aiming for.
Thank you. Councillor McAllister. Louise, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks for that. Just two quick questions. And one is, and forgive me if this has been addressed, but the application is entitled Extraction and Processing of Sand and Gravel in the first instance. It's on the first page of the application, but we're being told that the processing will not take place on site. But that is actually in the title of that we have in our agenda packs. Full plan and permission major for formation of a quarry for extraction and processing of sand and gravel land at Middleton Farm, Potterton. I don't know if that's been picked up somewhere else, but just as for clarification around that, and then I have an additional question.
Can I turn to Victoria, please?
Yes, that was the description put on when it was first registered as an application. We've had confirmation there is no processing within the site, as it's all the processing will be done at Loch Hills Quarry and not within that.
Okay, I mean, I think it might be helpful just, you know, if we agree plan and permission that it's 100%. I mean, I know that we're saying that, and it does say in the notes that the processing won't take place there, but it is in the title of the application. So I just wonder, in terms of clarity, that.
I'm looking at page 1, which reads full planning permission for extraction of sand and gravel at land at Middleton Farm, Potterton.
Okay, there is also a point 2.1. Background and proposal application seeking full plan permission formation of a quarry for the extraction and processing. So it is mentioned in the papers as well, Chair.
Yep, okay. And 2.1, have you any comment, Victoria?
The processing shouldn't be mentioned in the or the title. What's in it's the extraction of sand and gravel, so it shouldn't be. There isn't any processing.
Thank you. I mean, I think that would help with clarification of that. Anyone looking at the application is saying that there's going to be processing and we're being told there's not. So I don't doubt that there wouldn't be, but I do just think in terms of paperwork and records that that would need to be removed, clarified before any kind of agreement would move forward. I think that's quite an important point. And then I do have my one other question for the applicant.
Can I turn to legal officer? Is that possible?
Thank you, Chair. I think when planning are issuing a decision notice, it's a title from the paper. It's not the background and description within the paper that will go into that decision notice. That's my understanding. So I think if there was an error in the title on the paper, then I would look into amend that today. But the actual title is correct. It is just extraction. Your reference to processing is within the sort of background information within the report.
On the slide.
There is an error in that.
If there's an error in that, then I'm happy for that to be minuted. I think we can minute that that's an error within the slides, but certainly, you know, from a planning perspective, it's the decision notice that's going out, and that will rely on the title. So I don't have any difficulty with what will be the end result if you were to grant this. However, I think just for the minutes we could clarify. So there's been an error in the slides.
The minutes is where that will be rectified, but can I take in Claire?
Yes, it's just I have noticed it also says processing on the agenda notice pack, and so it probably says that in the title on the website, so we could minute that as well.
So it's important we minute this discussion. Is that a satisfactory route forward?
I think so, Chair, but I did think it was important to have that clarification there and have it minuted, so that's helpful. And then I had a question for the applicant, if that's okay. The lorry that would be used for transporting the sand and gravel, is that enclosed? Is it covered? I do know that there have been instances in the past of lorries driving along and you know, it's been dry substances, and the wind has actually picked that up and taken it off onto the roads. Would it be covered with tarpaulins or something along those lines? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, all our lorries are sheeted on the public highway. They have sort of retractable sheet that's can be controlled from within the cab. the lorry used here wouldn't be any different to the whole of our fleet. Just on that question, if I may, on title of the application, we'd be perfectly happy to accept a condition for the avoidance of doubt. There will be no processing of minerals on site, if that was appropriate.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Davidson, please. Isabel.
Yes, I just wanted to ask the applicant very quickly. I'm assuming that all your vehicles have trackers, so that if it was going to Porterton, you would know that it was going into Porterton, or if it was moving at an unrealistic speed, would know that that was the case.
Yeah, all of our trucks have trackers on them. Yeah, so we would know, but it wouldn't be worth the driver's job to go on any other route.
I note your hand up, Councillor Forsyth, but I've got a quick question, and that was in relation to, is there any likelihood of the direct sale of sand or gravel to third parties out of this particular quarry? Oh, in other words, it's all will go to your own quarry for processing at the nearby site.
That's right, Chair. Yeah, we won't be selling a grain to anybody direct from Middleton. It will all go to Lockhills for processing and be onwards from there.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Forsyth.
Yes, more of a comment to members in the chamber that the commissioners would have a dim view of any lorry that wasn't worked on a sheet. It is statutory that all HGV drivers will ensure that the cargo is sheeted, particularly with quarry materials, and I've done this myself. And you must clear the boards and make sure that there's no debris going to come off either the cargo hauling mechanisms or the tyres. So, there is a statutory responsibility for that to be, so you can be assured that that is already built into legislation. Thank you.
Okay, just one last thought comes to mind. In dry conditions in the summertime, will there be water spraying facilities on site in terms of reducing dust on the track leading onto the public highway?
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, so in very much the same way we do over at Lockhills, we have a tractor with a water bowser on the back that's deployed in dry conditions to keep all roads damp.
Yeah. Thank you. I see no further hands at this stage, so thank you very much indeed. I have a question that to ask in terms of a planning officer. Have you any further comments to make in relation to what the request to speak has made?
No, I've got no further questions or comments on what's been said. Thank you.
And does members have any questions for the planning officer? No, thank you. Thank you very much. Can I turn to Miss Gwen Pirrie? I hope, Gwen, you can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Chair?
We can, thank you very much indeed. So you may address the committee. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chair and members of the committee, thank you again for the opportunity to speak today. I do ask that you refuse this application because it's simply the wrong development and the wrong location. It's not currently, in my view, in compliance with the LDP as it misses a couple of key considerations which I'll outline, including the vision for Porterton in the LDP. I said this is really important as the proposal would industrialise an important area of the green belt. And one point I can't see in any of the reports, which I did raise in my representation, is it actually removes productive prime agricultural land. And prime land classes are 1, 2, and 3.1 in the LDP, which are marked in a map for prime land, and this is classed as 3.1. So I think that that's also a point that I would like to have addressed. The other point that I've not seen raised is there's been no justification as to why it needs to be on this greenbelt land to support it. And there's no justification to say that it couldn't be located elsewhere. I've not seen that be discussed. I'd ask that that be considered. And I also want to talk about the purpose of the green belt, because it is to protect the openness, the landscape character and the separation of settlements. Yet this site already sits immediately beside the recently approved battery energy storage facility. So if approved, this quarry would add a second major industrial development beside that facility, creating a cumulative impact far greater than either development considered in isolation, which is what's occurring today. I can hear some of the councillors raising it, but it's not in the application itself. The result would be the progressive transformation of rural open farmland into an industrial landscape. This is not a hidden site. It occupies an elevated and high visible position overlooking Potterton and the surrounding countryside. It is visible from homes, local roads and the wider landscape. Members should ask themselves whether this is a type of development that should be replacing green belt farmland in such a prominent location. My second concern is a fundamental conflict between this proposal and the wider activities already taking place at Middleton Farm. The farm currently attracts large numbers of families, and I'm sure many of you know it, through its Pick Your Own operation for strawberries. Now that's right the way through the summer vacation, 7 days a week. And if you've ever driven down through that period, you'll know it's challenging just for 2 cars to pass. So this is through school holidays, and it's seeking to expand its visitor offering through a farm shop and play barn, currently under a live planning application. These developments are specifically intended to attract more visitors, more families and more children onto that road. At the same time, this application proposes quarry HGV traffic using the same rural road network. I really struggle to understand how these two visions are compatible. How can we encourage a family destination while simultaneously introducing quarry traffic on the same roads used by visitors, walkers, cyclists, horse riders and local residents, as I've done walking down there with my pun of strawberries? You're missing a key material consideration, which is the cumulative impact of these developments. It's not been adequately considered, and given this is no more than a single track road, even with the passing places, if you've driven that road and met another car, you will know that it is not enough for 2 cars to pass with that passing place. And I challenge what the officer said about the HGV, and I'd suggest if an HGV has to go into that passing place where the car does, that you'll risk an HGV tipping because it's going to have to traverse the verge, and we know too well about the verges in Potterton with HGVs. My third concern relates to the neighbouring residents. So throughout this application, there are references to the nearby residential properties. However, I'm sure you've seen, I could hear that you could see the maps today on the applicant's plan. They will see that Newton Grange and Newton Hill Farm are not simply nearby. These properties are situated directly adjacent, and they're situated within the green belt that's currently surrounded by open landscape. By installing 11 metres wide tree line and bunding, you will fundamentally alter the openness of the landscape, which is the main sensitivity of the green belt in this area. So their rationale is wrong. This is not a positive. Rather, the officer has confirmed it will leave a significant long-term detrimental impact, which officers have indicated will be permanent, with a loss of openness which undermines the green belt, specifically as it's described for that area, which is the openness. There is no meaningful buffer between the homes and the extraction area. Again, it says nearby, but they're directly adjacent. The quarry boundary runs immediately alongside them, and it's separated only by the access road and a narrow strip of land. This is not a quarry located remotely from residential properties. It's a quarry proposed directly beside existing homes. Members should be asking themselves whether conditions can realistically remove the impacts of noise, dust, HGV movements and loss of residential amenity for households living effectively next door to an active quarry. I'd argue it's not reasonable to consider that they could ever be mitigated in that close proximity. Finally, I ask members to consider the planning balance. I fully accept that sand and gravel are important resources. However, the question before this committee is not whether aggregate is needed. The question is whether this particular site is the right place. This application would remove prime agricultural land, further erode the purpose of the green belt, harm landscape character, place industrial activity directly beside existing homes, introduce quarry traffic onto roads used by families and visitors that is already challenging, and contribute to ongoing industrialisation of this part of Potterton. Against those impacts, there appears to be no clearly demonstrated direct benefit to the local community, and any benefit is outweighed by the significant impact the site would have on all things considered. I would also note that the Newton Hill quarry was rejected with far less significant impacts, and we must ensure consistency. For all those reasons, I respectfully ask the committee to refuse this application today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Perry. Do members have Councillor Sterling, please, Anne?
Yeah, thanks very much. Just for clarification, could we ask the planning officer please to comment on whether or not cumulative impact of existing permissions and or pending applications are considered during the process of determining an application? Thank you.
So the cumulative impact of ones that are already consented are taken into account in the assessment of the application. We're aware, as was mentioned, that there are other applications at Middleton Farm which are early in the application process. They are currently being considered and they do not form part of this assessment of this application. But if this was approved, they would form part of the cumulative impact on the other application.
Councillor Hassan, please, Andrew.
Similar to Councillor Sterling, not a question for Ms Perry, but can I go back to the planner? Ms Perry focused on the impact on, tourism and economic development of the strawberry farm, etc. Do we know, was that taken into account when preparing the report for today?
The existing area around it, what is happening at the moment, was taken into account. The roads has been assessed, what this development impact would have on the road network going to it from our colleagues in roads.
No, but specifically on the economic development impact.
There's a condition proposed with the community wealth building as part of it within. Yes, and the section 6.69 discusses the community wealth building that's encouraged the type of development. It's going to be for the area, and there's a condition relating to the community wealth building of the application.
Yes, Andrew.
So where then does impact on the strawberry business factor into that paragraph 6.69?
The owners of the site are the owners of it's the same landowner as the same landowner. So if this was going to have a significant impact on their ability to do the strawberry picking, then I would assume they wouldn't then come into an agreement with Leafs to do with it, because it is the same landowners, it's part of the same farm, and it's a temporary use of that agricultural land, which will go back to agricultural land afterwards. But it's not if it had been a separate farm owner, that might be a different discussion within it, but it is the same landowner.
Councillor Nicholl, Jenny, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just on the back of the questions from Councillor Sterling and Councillor Hassan. So the assessments on the roads and everything are based on that busy day in July, rather than just generally the rest of the time, so that we're seeing what the roads movements, and maybe this is for Ken rather than planning, but based on those roads movements, not what we're experiencing all year round. I'm just aware of what we've heard from Mrs Perry, where actually it's people walking from the bus, it's people taking the bus from town out and they take off up the road. Also, there is no room to pass traffic in both directions. Sometimes it is a case of reversing halfway down the road. I just want to make sure those assessments were based on that time and not just at the quieter times.
So in terms of people getting buses through to Porterton, the traffic is not going on the eastern side towards Porterton, and people, you know, coming from Porterton, if they were getting off I don't know the bus routes all around there, but if they're getting the bus through that way and then walking up to the strawberry picking or whatever, there isn't, the HGV traffic isn't going in that direction on that side of the site. There's a short section, if I just kind of see it from the photo, just 2 seconds. So the access point is it's maybe a little bit behind where I'm taking the photo there. That's an existing field access, so it's a wee bit back from there, but there's a long straight, but there's a straight road from where the access is towards that little sign there is where you would turn up towards the strawberry picking. So that section of road is straight as you're passing the site entrance, which I say is a wee bit behind, to go to the strawberry picking. And the additional parking laybys that are being proposed along the road at the moment, completely agreed that it wouldn't be suitable the way the roads with the current laybys, but the number of new laybys that are being proposed as part of this development, there'll be a maximum of 199 metres between laybys to allow people to put in. So on most of the cases, it would improve people coming from the Bridgedon side towards the strawberry farm. They would obviously be improving the traffic compared to what's there at the moment using it. It could be used by anyone.
Yes, please.
Yep. However, it's not taken into account that for the strawberry picking, they're coming in both directions. They're not just going to be coming from Porterton. They come in on both directions, and then it's a case of waiting to decide. So they're going to be backing up onto this road, whilst there's also potentially the movement of HGV traffic. That was the kind of assessment I was wondering. I wondered if that assessment had been done at the height of the season rather than the rest of the year, where actually it is just perhaps agricultural vehicles that would be accessing the farm.
I refer to Ken for any comments on.
Yes, I could take Ken, please.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not aware of the date that the survey was done, but I would be inclined to think that it would just be a normal day. So we wouldn't have picked a busy day or a quiet day. It would have just been a representative day. So I don't anticipate that it's at the height of the strawberry picking, no.
I don't see any further questions, and just as that, Councillor Forsyth. Alistair.
Yeah, Ms. Pirrie has asked the committee to reject the planning application on the basis of industrialisation and outlook, yet when I look at the photographs that we see before us, the greatest impact landmark I see is the shed at Newton at the farm. Secondly, the movements, the movements of traffic from the quarry, should that be an application be offered and given, are relatively low key in comparison, say, for example, to a harvest of tractors, etc. But also, I think I would like comment from Ms. Pirrie whether or not she thinks that the additional laybys would be a benefit to everyone concerned across the piece, bearing in mind that the two sites that we're talking about, or the one site, this particular application is not permanent. It's going to be operational for 5 years and then reinstated back to the farm, and everybody goes on with their quiet life. Can you give me some indications of what your view is on that particular summary? Thank you.
Ms. Pirrie, would you care to respond?
Yeah, I will, and I think I'll just reflect. And I obviously I've lived in the village. My husband grew up in the village. I've lived for, coming up, be closer for 2 decades now, and I've been up and down that road all times of the year. Even thinking about snow, I've come down there, coming back from my dad's in Kennedy, who works at the quarry, by the way, who's been an HGV driver for 40 plus years. And if you're coming down that road with a car, and I actually drove up it last night. I went and drove up at 11 o'clock last night, just to kind of, understand again. If you meet a car on that road with that passing place as it is today, you can barely pass. You are scraping your car, like there's a lot of gorse bushes up either side. And I think that I think it was the roads officer that came in and said that the passing places wouldn't be wide enough for an HGV, so you'd have to get, the car to go in the other side to the passing place. And if you meet in between those two passing places, you're going to have to reverse because you can't get 2 cars past. And I really, really struggle to believe that you could get, even with that passing place, if you could get an HGV and a car past. And if the passing place is not wide enough, that HGV, and my dad always tells me there's risk of tipping because if they go into the verge, they'll lose balance and they'll go over. And I really don't find it reasonable of anybody with the level of families that are going up and down that road over that summer period for strawberry picking. It's not just strawberry picking, and the councils will know they have open days, they have concert days. It's not just the strawberry picking, it's throughout the summer, which I think is great, and it's a fantastic asset for the community. I'm so thankful to have it there, that you've got families, children coming up and down that road and people walking, as I do, to go up there from home. Actually, I walk up from Milton Porterton to go there. And I'm sorry to be so candid, it beggars belief that you could mix then HGVs on top of that. I don't think that the passing places are going to help. You're just going to introduce more risk, more problems. It's bad enough with just cars. And I think Councillor Nichols said it, you'll end up having to reverse.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Forsyth, you wish to respond?
Yeah, I'm very grateful for your summary. You haven't answered my question. I've asked if you think that the new laybys would be improvement, but you've also indicated that you would feel
not in the mix, not in the mix with an HGV. No.
Well, the thing is, you've asked us to, take an overview, and I'm looking at an HGV, and I'm looking at a very large tractor with implements fore and aft, much in the same weight category of each. So I'm finding it difficult to understand your particular objection to HGVs per se.
I think if you take anybody reasonable that could drive up that road and say it's suitable for HGVs, and in my mind, I'd question their competence, to be quite direct. And I think that there's obviously been assessment on that road because there's a sign up that says not suitable for HGVs. So I think it's quite reasonable to say that it's not just my view, but it's the view of whatever officers in the planning department or roads department that have instated those signs.
I would suggest that a tractor would sit in the same category as HGV. So
I have never met a tractor on that road. I will tell you, I've met 20 on my road in Milton of Potterton, but I have not came across a tractor on that road.
Okay, I think you've both made your points. Thank you very much. Can I turn to Councillor McAllister, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Just briefly, and I think it might be for the planner. I think there was mention made of this place being considered. Clearly, it's seen as a good, accessible source of the gravel and sand, etc. And I appreciate it's within 2.7 miles of the processing plant. I just wondered, given the green belt and all the discussion we've had, if another area has been considered, and this one was sort of the top of the list of deemed suitable sites for that. I do also think, just in terms of those farm vehicles, I do believe, actually coming from a farming background, that a great deal of them travel across their own land before accessing routes again, but that's by the by. Yeah, but it's the question around, has another site been considered in the round for this one to be settled on as the most suitable for the applicant?
This is the application that's been submitted to Aberdeenshire Council, and we have to assess whether we think that this is a suitable site within it. There's not a requirement, unlike retail, for a sequential assessment. So the minerals are located in this location, and they have applied to ourselves to assess that as an application.
Thank you. It was possibly more to the applicant, but it's fine. I just wanted to have it in there because it was raised by one of the objectors. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any further hands, so I'm going to thank Ms. Perry for her contribution. You may remain in the meeting to hear the remainder of the debate. Can I turn to Ms. Dawson? Emma, can you hear us okay?
Yep, certainly. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
You may address the committee and you have 5 minutes.
Okay, Chair, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm asking you all to stand with your communities and to put their health, safety, well-being first when considering this Middleton Quarry application. There are 77 objections, including an objection from the Community Council. Those objections come from local people who know this area and this road, who use it every day and who understand the reality of what this proposal would mean in practice. The clearest and most immediate issue is road safety. The proposed quarry would introduce regular HGV traffic onto the unclassified U17C, a narrow road already unsuitable for HGV vehicles. This road is used daily by residents, school transport, walkers, cyclists, runners and horse riders. It has blind bends, poor visibility, limited passing places and warning signs already recognising the danger of large vehicles. This is not a theoretical concern, it is a practical day-to-day safety risk. Road safety must be the deciding issue. Peak local traffic has not been properly accounted for, including the seasonal traffic to Middleton Farm for the pick your own strawberries and the Christmas trees over the winter period. At busy times, adding frequent lorry loads would significantly increase the risk of accidents. Widening the road and adding passing places does not remove this danger. In fact, it may set a precedent, encouraging even more traffic and HGVs to use this road as a shortcut, undermining years of community effort to get those signs in place. No provision of quarry vehicle monitoring has been suggested or provided to ensure that they adhere to their daily frequency limits or the left turn only from the quarry access point. During peak building season, these quarry frequencies will no doubt increase with the demand for materials, exacerbating the traffic volume already on this unclassified road. There are blind spots at key junctions, including from Newton Grange and Newton Hill Farm and at Hill Head. Slide 26 fails to show this, it only looks west, not east. As a resident of Newton Hill Farm, I can assure you this is a severe blind spot. A lorry and a school coach cannot safely pass on this route, nor can a tractor or HGV, even with these additional passing places. This endangers children waiting at the roadside pickup points and school transport using this road. Planting 60 trees, large trees plus others, directly in front of neighbouring properties will cause loss of amenity to these properties and our access road, darkening them significantly. Tree roots will not only undermine the retaining boundary wall, but also our existing access road for our properties. These trees, particularly pine, which you have suggested will be planted, are renowned to fall during high winds in the recent storms these years, which will in turn block our access road to our properties. This is not just about logistics or road engineering, it's about the safety of people going about their ordinary day-to-day lives. Pollution and public health concerns have also been seriously unresolved and have been raised by many residents. An incomplete environmental impact assessment and environmental information were provided with this application. Several missing documents, including a hydrological risk assessment, dusk management plan and climate impact statement, were not provided. These demonstrate an inherent failure to comply with the National Planning Framework 4 and the 2023 Aberdeenshire Local Development Plan. to ensure that the developmental environmental effects have been fully understood and mitigated. Residents have raised concerns about quarry dust, air quality, noise, vibration, groundwater, and the impacts on private water supplies. Examples of dust travel on this elevated site were emailed to you all last night. These images were taken last year at low wind speeds and demonstrate the impact of dust that it would have on the surrounding village and the residences. These are not minor inconveniences. They affect health, homes, and the ability to live day to day in comfort and safety. For people with asthma and other respiratory conditions, dust can worsen symptoms and reduce quality of life. Residents are worried about not being able to open windows, dry washing outside, or enjoy their gardens safely, spending time outdoors. Impacts to neighbouring amenities, including Middleton's Pick Your Own Farm, could be detrimental due to the dust, noise, and industrial activities. This is not the kind of change locals want or deserve. In summary, local people have raised serious and credible concerns about road safety, pollution, public health, and the lack of complete supporting information. This proposal would place heavy industrial traffic onto a road that is simply not safe for it, while also introducing unresolved environmental and quality of life impacts for nearby residents. There are no clear community benefits that outweigh these risks. No meaningful local gains have been demonstrated, whilst the cost to safety, health, and amenity would fall on the people who live here every single day.
1 minute left.
Before you vote, I ask you to picture that road, a narrow, winding road with blind spots, school transport, children waiting at roadside pickup points, and residents walking or cycling along it. Then ask yourselves, honestly, whether adding regular quarry HGVs and others, because as soon as people see quarry HGVs using this road, others will start to use this as a shortcut again, to that environment is truly safe, truly responsible, and truly in the public interest. Decisions like this are not just about extraction. They're about whose burden it is judged acceptable. I urge you not to place that burden on this community, and for those reasons, I ask you to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I turn to members and ask if they have any questions for Ms Dawson, please? I see no hands, so can I thank you very much indeed for your contribution. You may remain in the meeting to hear the remainder of the debate. I'm going to turn to Ms Parker. Can you hear me, please?
Hello, she's not, Chair, she's not with me today, so I'm not sure if she's dialing in separately, so I would just take it that she's not here.
Did say she might not make it on time.
Okay, we'll need to proceed, I think. Yes, any comments that any of the speakers have made that you wish to come back on?
So there was one comment regarding there was discussions about a condition possibly about a transport management plan, and that could incorporate what measures, whether it's additional signage or something, when these events, the strawberry picking or the Christmas trees are on within that development. And also the site developed was screened under the environmental impact assessment regulations as not requiring a full EIA, but the documents required along with hydrology and what have been assessed as part of the proposal, and that information has been discussed within the report. The only other thing with the prime agricultural land has been mentioned, and the area of prime agricultural land is a very small section of the top northwestern corner. I can share the plan hopefully for that, just 2 seconds. From up here, is this corner up here is identified as the prime agricultural land within the site, but the majority of the site is out with that designation. And most of the quarrying is going from this corner kind of up that way.
So the prime agricultural land is the hatched area?
That hatch brown area there, yeah. It forms part of the site, but not all the site.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hudson, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. One of the speakers had concerns that this proposal is so close to the other planning application for the battery storage facility proposal. Does the service have a view on the compatibility of these proposals being side by side? Is there safety concerns, etc., as was outlined by one of the speakers?
So during the creation of the battery storage, so the access for that is completely separate from this development, and we don't see any significant problems between the two, or the compatibility between the two. The bottom section of this site, the southeastern corner, where it's moving then forward, it would be the first part of the development to commence. So it'd be moving away from where the development of the BESS is going at the moment. And as the BESS becomes operational, depending what the time periods that it'll take for that to become operational, there wouldn't be any conflict between the two sites. And the access vehicles for the HGVs for this quarrying uses a completely different road network and route away from the site. So the two wouldn't be going in the same direction to get to it. From the main transport routes to do with the BESS, it's unlikely to come from that direction.
Councillor Stirling, please.
Yeah, just very quickly, Chair. If committee did approve this application, and bearing in mind there would probably be an additional condition in terms of traffic management alongside signage, additional signage, would it be reasonable, given what the representative has put before us about adding timing within that plan to avoid school pick-up and drop-off times? Is that reasonable in terms of conditioning? It's just a question. But should committee approve this, would that be a reasonable addition to the traffic management plan?
I wouldn't consider that that's specific, that they can't be between, say, 3 or 3:30, because it can vary, quite a lot with how the vehicle, so it wouldn't be competent to put that within it.
Thanks for that.
Okay, no more hands. Before we go on to consider this further, can I confirm that members are satisfied that they've received all necessary information and feel able to participate in the determination of this application? Okay, we'll now move on to the debate and the application before we consider any motions. And for that, if I can turn to local members, and if I can start with Councillor Hassan, please, Andrew.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I've really welcomed this debate. I think it's been a really good discussion about what is quite a technical application, but obviously one that's really of concern to local residents, not least on the main things we've talked about: closeness, proximity to the village, transport movements, dust, etc. We've covered a lot of things in this discussion. One of the residents described this as the wrong development in the wrong location, and there was concerns about, the fact that this is industrialisation of agricultural land, and we had a similar discussion not that long ago with a battery storage application just along the road, and I found this discussion largely the same, but albeit a different subject matter. But I do have great concern with the local residents. I welcome the fact that the HGV movements, etc., have been covered. I welcome the fact that no unresolved technical objectives have progressed as far as now, which is why the recommendation is to grant. I understand the need for the resource, but I don't think we can ignore the concerns of the local community that we've heard today on the transport movement, on the possibility of dust going across Potterton, and obviously road safety. The passing places will help. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think the planting of 60 trees would help screen the development. I don't think there's any problem with that. but the wider problems, about the road safety and about other things that the residents mentioned can't be ignored. Yes, it's an important mineral resource, and I can understand why the proposals come forward, but I'm uneasy about approving this as it stands for the reasons that the residents have flagged. So right now I'm minded not to move approval, but I'm keen to hear from other members around the table. I'm not the only member of this committee, but I think that we've covered a lot of territory in this discussion, and this is one that deserves a proper discussion, because it has merits and indeed concerns around it, and I welcome the views of others. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I turn to Councillor Nicholl? Jenny, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I broadly have many of the same concerns. I think this site is going to occupy that elevated position above the village. So there are considerable concerns from residents in the village as well as the neighbouring ones. The site does lie within Aberdeen Greenbelt. So whilst we recognise that mineral extraction may be an acceptable form of development, that doesn't mean every quarry proposal within Greenbelt should automatically be approved. The purpose of the Greenbelt policy was to protect openness, maintain the landscape setting of settlements, and prevent that erosion of the countryside through incremental development. And I don't really believe we've had much justification that addresses those wider concerns. And we also have to consider it in context of what already exists and what has already been approved. We know about the BEST site. It still feels to me that this is an application in isolation, and we're considering Strawberry Farm and everything that's going on around it. The key planning issue isn't just that the quarry is acceptable in principle, but whether we're looking at that through different developments all happening in the same green belt. I am equally concerned, as Councillor Hassan, about the roads and the transport assessment and the implications of such. It feels as though we're putting considerable reliance on putting in some passing places. And the roads affected by this proposal are rural roads. They're used by residents, walkers, cyclists, horses. There's agricultural traffic, although I would acknowledge that I think they generally do use their own land to move around. And the residents, as well as the Community Council as a statutory consultee, have repeatedly raised concerns regarding the road width, visibility, blind bends, safety, winter conditions, and actually the opening where there is a passing place is entirely blind. You cannot see around the corner. So yeah, I don't think we have had all those concerns addressed. And it doesn't provide that robust assessment for me on the active travel users, the residential amenity, or the wider function of the road network here at Poshton. We already have signage on this road to say not suitable for HGVs. So we approve this, we're saying yes. We're saying yes, and it's not just potentially HGVs for this site. It could be any. And we've heard today that we can't make it compulsory that they will turn left, and we can't condition that one vehicle will use the route at any one time. So we actually can't protect the space or the road in that sense. I've touched on it, but I think that movement, that 28 movements a day, we're being asked really whether the road network is going to cope, not just with the 28 movements, but are we going to establish that that can be used for any now? Is it going to be any chance that someone wants to cut through and there's nothing that we're going to be able to do to stop it anyway? And we're accepting that U17C and the associated roads are capable of accommodating regular heavy goods vehicles. And yeah, it's more than 28 movements a day. And I don't think the passing places is enough to assess that cumulative consequences of road safety and residential amenity and rural character. So yeah, I think this is a lot more significant than that. And I look forward to what Paul's going to say.
Thank you. Turning to Councillor Johnston. Paul, please.
Thanks, Chair. I have to say, Councillor Nicholl has hit most of the points nail on the head, because a number of the particular points which I think are about this one, I asked questions. A question regarding the road layout. Now, the answer to those has been that we have put these effectively voluntary things in place by the applicant. The applicant would be able to do this. Now, I have absolutely no doubt that this applicant, Leith's well-respected firm, will do that. But we do not consider planning applications on the basis of who the applicant is, but on the basis of what the land use and the regulations would say about that land use. That's always been mine, and if we wander away from that principle, we're wandering into difficult territory. For example, lease might not necessarily be the only owner in history of this particular piece of land. If somebody, it is unlikely but conceivable that somebody else will end up owning a piece of owning this land or operation and do something different. So what is important in our decision today will be having a clear idea that the rules and regulations we are setting down in the granting of the consents, the rules and regulations which are going to make this a viable proposition. On that basis, I can see two major points. One, most developments and these quarry type developments are bad neighbours. They can create a lot of difficulty for residents. We know that. They can be accepted by good practice, and that's absolutely certain. But we also have to remember that it might not be them, and therefore the practice must be the good practice must be tried to be designed into the proposal at this particular stage. So, for example, and I'll make this particular point, if you want the traffic to turn left, then there actually has to be something physical more than just the radius of a curve, possibly, something really physical to put in the place to make sure that they do, and that is under the control of the council. So anybody else who ended up would have the equal problem of turning anything else but left. So it's about designing the roadways. And again, if this is the right site, then we shouldn't be having a problem with road access and the narrowness of the roads and blind bends, etc. Because we might make that as an assessment whether we should or shouldn't do it. What I'm clear about is that if you like, the actual site as such, next to the batteries, etc., is an acceptable site. Jenny is absolutely correct that because this is a green belt, we should be looking at this at whether it actually conforms with that, and is the bar set higher because it's a green belt? And the answer to that is yes, that's the nature of what the green belt was about. The bar should be set higher. Doesn't mean that they can't do it. It just means that this particular site might be the one where might not necessarily be the best one. And as we've heard, our officers don't assess the sites. It's the applicant that assess the sites. Now, the value or possibility of use of a piece of land might have come into it. So I'm tending towards the view that this one is, in some senses, a good application, but the downsides of the application do not outweigh the need for maintaining the green belt and providing a good environment, making sure there is good and safe access to the premises. So over and all, taking all of those things into account, the weight is beginning, in my view, the weight lies in taking a precautionary approach and saying no to this development, and I think the applicants could have heard the arguments, and I think it's always in the process that they can come back on another occasion with one or perhaps a different site somewhere, or taking in the physical constraints that would need to be put in place to have a good application passed. That would be my view, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I wonder if there are any other views from other members. Councillor Davidson, please.
Yes, that's very much. Some of you would know that I've got a lot of experience of quarries, having lived just on the brink of one, 40 metres away from a quarry for a lot of years. And it's surprisingly not unpleasant, and if a quarry is well run, absolutely no issues at all. But I do agree that the lorries are issues. But living beside a quarry, I've moved into a town now, and the dust is far worse in a town than it ever was at the quarry. It is quite remarkable, how well those activities can be managed well, so that they don't cause problems. So, and there is also the issue that there are only some places that are suitable for quarrying these materials. It's not just everywhere that you can obtain appropriate materials. Ground conditions have to be right, and it has to be, a site that can be worked. So I do, and Greenbelt is acceptable because the restoration is going to be in a relatively short period of time. So I think, to me, that's acceptable as well. I absolutely certainly had, when I first read this, I was very concerned about traffic movements. That, to me, absolutely is the biggest issue. And hearing that there's going to be appropriate passing places, and that there is going to be a transport management plan, that it's the same owner as the fruit farm, so therefore they have some influence over decisions that are made, and that we have been told, and I guess that is going to be the case really, that there will be only one vehicle doing all the movements each day. I don't think this is an unreasonable application, and I'm heading in the direction of approving it, or I would be looking towards approving it, but obviously there's still people wanting to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Forsyth, please.
Yeah, I'll carry on from where Councillor Davidson has left off. I mean, the very essence of planning and development is it will, it'll have an effect on someone or somewhere. And my job as a councillor is to balance all of that out. I've yet to come across, in my experience of being a surveyor and various other jobs, where a quarry is in an ideal position. Quarries are normally located in awkward positions simply because of the way the minerals have been deposited through the annals of time. So we've got to live with that. We also have got to live with the fact that we want to build houses, we want to build roads, we want to build infrastructure, and we need the materials to do it. And so therefore, on balance, we've got to take kind of the rough with the smooth. And I do appreciate that, residents really are impacted, a great deal on all of these kind of developments. I mean, I think in Ward 7 has some of the major developments throughout the whole of the UK at the moment. And in the fullness of time, they'll mature and settle. And, folks will, understand that we all benefit largely from, these developments in one way or another. So, I'm positively disposed to this application. I thought, as Councillor Davidson has indicated, it's reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I can perhaps make a comment or two, and I appreciate it's a difficult decision and it's a balancing act, but the fact that it's one lorry, one driver, there has been passing places added, the visibility aspect, it is a lorry, it'll be higher up, and at some of the junctions, we'll actually see over some of these verges, I think. The quarrying is going to be a 5-year programme, with restoration taking place within that 5 years, albeit it doesn't finish until a further 2 years has been proposed. So these are factors that begin to weigh in my mind and in my thinking. So I'm going to close at that particular point. Not see any further hands or comments. So are we in a position that I'm actually looking for a proposal, a motion, please? Councillor Nicholl, please. Jenny.
Sorry. Yes, I will raise a motion to refuse the application. My comments from before would still stand. I think I've got concerns about roads. I've got concerns, same as Councillor Johnson, about the physical engineering not being in place to stop them from turning left. I appreciate what you said as well about HGVs will be able to see further. The other cars on the road, though, are not going to see around some of these blind bends. There's an HGV coming their way until they're upon them. I think in terms of reasoning, I would mention NPF 4 Policy 8, which recognises that mineral extraction may be an acceptable form of development in principle, but that does not mean every quarry proposal within the Green Belt should automatically be approved. Recognising the purpose of the Green Belt to maintain the landscape of settings. So what did I say? That was Policy 8. I want to talk about roads as well in terms of my reasoning. Roads affected by this proposal are rural roads used by residents, walkers, cyclists, equestrians, agricultural traffic and school transport. I want to put significant weight on the representations, including that from statutory consultee, the Community Council. And I think there's one other, what else did I have? Policy 13, NPF 4, is consideration of safe and sustainable transport, and Policy 18 requires an infrastructure first approach and proper consideration of infrastructure capacities and impacts. And I think that's some reasoning.
I would happily second that, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Johnson. I was just pausing to let the clerk catch up. So we have a seconder from Councillor Johnson. Is there an amendment? Councillor Davidson, please.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to put forward an amendment. And actually, I had one little thing that I wanted to say before I do so. The neighbours were concerned about tree species that might be planted along the boundary. I'm sure there could be negotiation about tree species. I don't think that is a do or die thing. I'm sure that they could come to some agreement about appropriateness of tree species along the boundary. I do think that this is an appropriate development in an appropriate place for a relatively short time, for a material that's essential for the prosperity of the North East. And I would agree with the conditions, and we've spoken about some amendments that have been necessary, and those would need to be included in any final document, but I would propose that this is agreed.
Thank you. Before I take in Councillor Forsyth, Claire, please.
Just for clarification for the minute, can you repeat the additional conditions or changes to conditions? I've got traffic management plan.
Yes, so the original conditions with the addition of a traffic management plan.
Tree species.
And discussion about tree species.
Councillor Forsyth.
I'd be pleased to second that as described by Councillor Davidson. Thank you.
Okay. I'll move. I'm guessing there's no further amendments. And with that, I'll move to summing up. Councillor Davidson, please.
I'm happy just not to sum up. Thank you.
Councillor Nicholl, summing up.
No, thanks, Chair. I'm okay.
So therefore we go to the vote.
Chair, I have the motion with Councillor Nicholl, seconded by Councillor Johnston, to refuse the application on the grounds that it is contrary to MPF 4 Policy 8, Policy 13 and Policy 18 for the reasons discussed. And I have the amendment with Councillor Davidson, seconded by Councillor Forsyth, to approve as per the recommendations within the report, with the addition of a condition relating to a traffic management plan and further discussion around the species of trees to border the road. So I'll start with Councillor Crawley,
Amendment.
Councillor Davidson,
Amendment.
Councillor Forsyth,
Amendment.
Councillor Hassan,
Motion.
Councillor Johnston,
Motion.
Councillor Lang,
Amendment.
Councillor McAllister,
Motion.
Councillor Nicholl,
Motion.
Councillor Sterling,
Motion.
Councillor Taylor,
Amendment.
so we have a tie vote of 5 votes to 5, and so the casting vote goes to the chair.
And I'm going to pick amendment.
Therefore, the amendment is carried and the application is approved as per the amendment.
Councillor Hassan, please.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for your indulgence. On the back of that discussion we've had today, can I request that members have an informal session, please, with roads? Because we've heard today our roads official has said, in his expert opinion, we're putting traffic onto a road that is not intended to cater for HGV movements. So I'd now benefit, I think all members would benefit from a session in private with roads as to how they formulate their consultation responses to committees on roads matters, because that for me was a key factor in the determination of this application. And the advice that he gave us during the discussion was that the road was not intended to cater for these lorries, and yet we've just approved a planning application to do just that. So I think all members, all 12 of us, would benefit from a private session with roads, just specifically to talk about how do they formulate the responses to planning consultations. I would welcome the views of other members. Thank you.
Okay. I'll take in Councillor Johnson and then Councillor Forsyth. Paul, please.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. This is a tricky subject, and I feel quite uncomfortable. It is not meant as any criticism at all of the officer who represents the service in the room today. But I do think it would be useful to have roads development and roads officers who the two elements of the service with councillors and perhaps a head of planning to discuss exactly what would be best practice for us as a committee in trying to deal with planning applications, because there constantly are tensions involved between it, and it's unfair of sometimes the roads development officer to take the rap for it, if you like, in a committee.
I see a number of hands coming up. I don't want to stifle discussion, but I do need to suspend standing orders as it's getting close to 1300.
Agreed.
Thank you. So I'll now turn to Councillor Forsyth and then Councillor Sterling.
Yeah, decision making is not, from my view, in these didn't swing on whether or not the road is unsuitable for HGVs or not. I don't think that's a factor, and I'm not sure that a discussion with officers with the best intentions is going to change the status of some roads are not going to be suitable for HGVs, but on occasions HGVs will use them, and that's not going to change. Thank you.
Councillor Sterling.
Yeah, I just wonder, Chair, rather than a specific roads discussion, I kind of agree with Councillor Johnson. I think there's a discussion to be had, maybe an informal discussion, with this committee in terms of consistency in decision making in planning. And I think there's a more general issue, and I don't think we should be specific about roads. I think decision making in general, in terms of what is relevant and what is consistent, because just for absolute clarity, I voted the way I did today because I've been consistent in terms of other applications where the road network, in my view, was not suitable, but this committee agreed it. So I just think there's a general, and that's I'm of the view also, once a decision is made, that is it, and you move on to the next one. I don't dwell on it, but I think rather than a specific roads discussion, we need to have a discussion about consistency in decision making when it comes to planning, and that would encompass everything. If that's an alternative that members would be minded to agree to.
Okay, thank you. Can I take Sarah?
Yes, we can certainly table that with the service in terms of putting forward an informal session for the committee on wider planning issues and consistency. Yeah, certainly. I'm happy to take that.
I know Councillor Johnson's hand up again, or is that a legacy?
No, it's not. And I just
Please.
wanted to say is I appreciate Councillor Sterling's point about the consistency. I think I've been very consistent, and I think we all want to be very consistent, but actually planning also has the idea built into it that we would be inconsistent in certain circumstances, because it is supposed to be based, every decision is supposed to be appropriate, and it can be different. But in terms of the technical parts, yes, I think we can both be consistent, Councillor Sterling, and be very different, have very different views at the end of it.
I don't disagree through you, Chair, Councillor Johnson, but there's material considerations, relevancy and consistent approach in terms of that decision making, I think would be worthwhile having a conversation.
Councillor McAllister, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. Very briefly indeed, and as anyone knows it within planning, as councillors, we take our own independent decisions, which we formulate largely on the day itself, depending on the outcome of people that we hear from and speak to, and all of those things. So I think that's really important to highlight. My own personal reasoning, without going into it in great depth, I thought the road was taken as being currently unsuitable. However, it may be made suitable by the provision of the passing places. I still didn't vote to pass this planning application, and I think it does come back partly to that consistency and to those things. So again, it's down to each individual councillor to make their own decision based on their knowledge and understanding. But a conversation, I think, is always welcome. But that was my point. That was my thinking in terms of the roads. It's not currently suitable. It may be deemed suitable with the addition of passing places. So those two things are not to be conflated into one. I would welcome that conversation, and I do welcome Councillor Sterling's comments again on consistency, albeit we take every single application on its own merit. So we're always open to that kind of discussion along there. We'll never get to exactly the same. So we can only apply our own knowledge and understanding of that. But it was just a comment on that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And just for completeness, can I just comment that the public part of this meeting has now concluded. The recording will be stopped. Thank you all for your interest. We will take a break and continue with items